we'll talk a lot about bilirubin, but just really briefly, what I will often tell parents is the same stuff that makes your pee yellow and your poop brown is the bilirubin, which makes a baby's skin jaundiced. So that's why feeding is really intertwined with the management of bilirubin, because the more the baby pees and poops, the more bilirubin we're getting out of the baby's system. So if the baby isn't feeding well or is dehydrated, now that's limiting the amount of bilirubin we're able to excrete. Welcome back to The Unplanned Parent. I'm Dr. Angel here with my brother, who was suddenly deeply committed, bearing a permanent address for the first time in a long time, covered in baby milk and the other outputs of a new baby, and surprisingly into his newest role as a father. Listen to how this is going according to the new baby's besotted maternal grandparents. This is what Ashley's mom and dad sent to Raman and my mom and dad. I just want to share with you that before we came here, we did not know what kind of father Raman would be. The answer is amazing and totally dedicated. He not only does everything in his power to make certain that Zen has everything he needs to get off to the best possible start in life, but he also pushes our stubborn daughter to get the proper rest and nutrition so she can be a great mom. Thank you for raising such a wonderful son. Looking forward to the future. I can't believe I'm sitting here reading this kind of text message about my brother and his son. Still feels weird for me to say, but the baby is here. And today we're talking about one of the most common things that sends new parents, including Raman and Ashley, into a spiral the first week of life: jaundice. Most babies get it. Most parents are not prepared for it. And let's fix that. Let's talk about some jaundice today, some bilirubin. How are you guys doing?
We're doing really good. Yeah, I mean, bilirubin became so ingrained into our child's life that we almost changed his name to Bilirubin. Until you told me about like Hannibal Lecter or whatever. I don't even know what you were talking about. And I was like, okay, we're not changing his name to Bilirubin. We're keeping it at Zen. So
Yeah. Yes, bilirubin is very stress-inducing. Zen is the opposite. So let's stick to Zen. So just to let everyone know what happened, Ashley and Raman had their baby. It was an amazing experience. Everything was going great. Raman and Ashley both felt this like love and overwhelming joy and gratitude. This new baby's in their world.
my sister and all her kids came to visit us.
Yeah, nothing else in the world seemed important. They went home from the hospital. Well, even before you went home from the hospital, you were told that the baby was jaundiced and you were going to need some phototherapy. Mm-hmm. So you got some phototherapy in the hospital. You went home because the number was coming down. Feeding seemed to be going well. But then you guys ended up having to go back to the hospital because that number that measures jaundice, that yellowing in a baby, that number is called the bilirubin, and your bilirubin was high enough that the baby needed to be readmitted to get more phototherapy. And this time you guys ended up in the NICU because that's just where, not because the baby was so sick, but that's where this treatment was going to be delivered. And you ended up spending 4 nights in the NICU, which is a lot when you just you went in with a 4-day-old and spent the next 4 days in the NICU.
Hey, I'm ready to go back. That was the best 4 nights of sleep I got.
Yeah. So do you guys want to share a little bit about how it felt? And I was there when you got that lab result and Ashley started crying and...
Yeah, you were down at my place in San Diego. Ashley was over. The baby was here, and it was your youngest daughter's birthday, and
Yes,
we were all
she was
getting
turning
excited.
10.
Yeah,
We were about to sing happy birthday to her.
Yeah, and then Ashley got a text message that was like bilirubin, whatever, 17 or 18 or whatever the score was, and it was like we highly recommend going to the NICU and doing phototherapy. And I remember them telling us in a normal circumstance, they might not recommend it, but he was also Coombs positive, which Angel could probably dive deeper into what that means.
So he was at higher risk because there was a ABO incompatibility and Coombs positive.
No one knows what ABO incompatibility means.
Okay, so we'll talk about that later, but that does put a baby at higher risk, and especially it basically means that there's something from the mom's blood that is making the baby's red blood cells become destroyed. There's something destroying the baby's red blood cells, and that is leading to the release of this bilirubin.
And let's not blame Ashley for this, because it's my blood type with her blood type that created his blood type.
Yeah, that's what created the problem.
So we're equally at fault.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of his red blood cells were being destroyed because of this incompatibility in blood types, and his little baby liver was. And little baby intestines were just not mature enough to clear it fast enough. So what the lights do is they help they help chemically change the bilirubin so it can leave the baby's system. So we'll talk a lot about bilirubin, but just really briefly, what I will often tell parents is the same stuff that makes your pee yellow and your poop brown is the bilirubin, which makes a baby's skin jaundiced. So that's why feeding is really intertwined with the management of bilirubin, because the more the baby pees and poops, the more bilirubin we're getting out of the baby's system. So if the baby isn't feeding well or is dehydrated, now that's limiting the amount of bilirubin we're able to excrete. So that becomes even more important. And of course, when you have a baby in phototherapy away from the mom, feeding problems are more likely to happen.
So let's go back to that day where we got the call, Ashley. You want to talk about that, when we're all trying to have a good time?
It was the morning after one of the peeing incidents. After, if you remember the last episode.
The peeing incident. Oh, where you got peed on?
One of the few times Ashley peed her pants.
One of the few times we were going to the lab results, and then a few hours later I got the text message with the results. And I remember standing in the kitchen, and I think the score was 19, if I remember right. And I just remember going, guys, I just started crying. And I'm like, it's bad news. It's 19. I just remember that was higher than what the doctor wanted to see. And the doctor, our pediatrician, is so great. I think within 20 minutes, I got a phone call from her, and I had her on speaker. I couldn't comprehend anything she was saying, so I had kind of Angel be my translator and be my go-between, and I called Raman into the room, and they suggested going to the NICU. And that's the last thing that you want to hear after you're home settled with your baby, is that you have to go to the hospital and spend the night. And I know NICUs are great places, and they're safe, and they do miracle things. And it's not the worst reason to be in the NICU, but it was still hard, obviously, for me.
Yeah, it's one of the things I hated having to tell parents when they've come home, they're just getting settled. You guys had spent like 2 nights at home, and now you're going to have to go back to the hospital. And I always had to, take a few breaths before making that call to parents, because I knew that's the last thing they want to do is go back to the hospital. And also just the stress of it's hard enough to pack up your baby and go even to a doctor's appointment, but then
It's interesting, Ashley, that you said that Angel was translating English to English for you, because I was also in a weird headspace, because Angel's kids and Angel's husband were going to go on this walk in the lagoon next door, and I was like, I'm going to come with you guys. This is as the information is coming in. And I'm telling the kids, hey, I'm going to come on a nice little walk with you guys. Then I'm like, wait, I can't go on a walk right now. I just heard the word NICU, and I was like, Tim, I'm not going anywhere. I need to be here and figure out what's going on. He's like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, why don't you tell me that I shouldn't be going on a walk with you? And he's like, I don't know what's going on. He's got the dog. He's ready to hang out with the kids and just go have a nice little walk around the park, basically. Yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, Tim has this superpower, some may call it, of being able to compartmentalize things. So if you tell him the baby's going to the NICU, but you just go take a walk, he'll be like, okay. And he'll just goes. If you tell him this is something he doesn't need to worry about, he's happy to not worry about it. Whereas I would be like, wait, what? How, So anyway, okay, so we had some crying, but then you guys got to work, you packed up a bag, and you guys were out of the house within 15 minutes of getting that phone call.
It was real quick. We were gone.
Yeah,
I was like,
took some,
let's just go now.
Yeah, you took
And
the
Ashley
frozen
was
breast
like,
milk. You just, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it's always good to have a bag packed if you have a baby. Have something packed.
Yeah, have something packed. Yeah, but you knew they'd have diapers and everything for you there. Okay, so tell me, what did the doctors tell you that felt good and helpful? And what do you feel like, if you could give them some advice to have made this experience a little easier for you, what could the doctors or nurses or other staff members have done a little differently that could be maybe helpful for other parents going through this?
I don't think I can think of anything that they could have done better, to be honest. We were very lucky. We were in a beautiful, brand new NICU, had a wonderful care. And when we got there, the first thing that they were asked me was, do you understand why you're here? Like, do you understand? And just being very matter of fact. And it's just like, we just need to get him under the lights. And they explained the whole process in different language than I had heard before, and just maybe dumbed it down a little bit better for me. Or maybe I was just in a different kind of state where I was understanding it better. But it was, I can't think of anything they could have done better. And we just stayed there.
Okay, but that's also great advice for medical staff. So you just like sit down, spend some time with me, and tell me why I'm here and what you're going to do, and make it feel. It sounds like they made you feel very comfortable. They didn't rush you. They didn't make you feel like they needed to just that they were rushed. It sounds like they made time for you, and you felt like they made time for you.
Yeah, they had their room. They were expecting us. They had the room all prepared for us. They were like, come here, welcome. This is your room. Like, just so kind of like almost welcoming us into like our vacation home, It's just like, thank you for being here. Like, just very calm,
It was so nice that we were like, we should make Zen's baby room look exactly like this place.
Yeah, I don't think that I've ever heard that before.
Wow. You know what was really weird is you remember him, he was crying and not eating the day that we had to go to the NICU. And we get to the NICU and they turn on the lights. And this little dude was just like passed out, limp to the world. Everyone's like messing around with him. And we're like, they're like, your son has very low energy. We're like, he's not like this normally. Like it was almost like he was in a tanning salon with the cucumbers on his eyes. Just like, and to this day, I don't understand what happened. I think he was just so exhausted and tired from maybe not eating and having the high bilirubin level and, feeling weak, that he got to the hospital and was like, this is my place to pass out. I'm gonna go to bed for like, and then I was like, do we look like horrible parents? We have a kid who's like they like lifting his arm and it just goes boop and falls back down.
Yeah,
it was heartbreaking. They were lifting his eylids and he wasn't waking up.
Yeah, it was like
so
weird.
Lethargic.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. So that's, usually if a baby doesn't have energy to kind of pull back when you're poking and prodding him, that makes doctors pretty concerned. So I'm sure they were concerned that the baby was maybe dehydrated and needed a little more energy. So I'm sure they got to work trying to help you figure out what the best way to feed the baby was right away.
Yeah, and there's not... there's the mom guilt, it's like, am I not feeding my baby? What happened? And I know it's a combination of being under the lights at the hospital and the milk and the breast milk. And it's a combination of everything, but it's not beside myself to feel that guilt, that I was doing something wrong.
You did feel, irrationally bad. And then, and then on top of all that, you have me being like, I can't believe you're a bad mom. And so, that didn't help either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think mom guilt is horrible then there's so many things that you'll think about. But yes, of course, you're trying to nurse your baby, and then you're like, well, am I not making enough milk? And then you feel bad if you're not making enough. You feel bad if the latch isn't right. You feel bad if you missed a hunger cue. There's a lot of reasons. And of course, rationally, I hope you know that you were not doing anything wrong. And but he was in a state. He was not taking milk from a bottle either. Like eh, there was a lot going on, and he definitely had feeding problems, which is also common in the newborn period, but certainly worse when a baby's been under Billy lights and kind of is too hungry, too dehydrated, maybe not even having the energy to feed himself, which is what ultimately happened with baby Zen.
And it's sad to look at your baby in like, in that kind of setting, and you're just like, wait, what's going on here? Like, we can't just hold him. And
I know. And I know you guys were in the room when they were trying to get an IV in him to rehydrate him, and they couldn't get the IV, and they were sticking him so many times.
the
And
irony,
I
huh?
think
Like, he was too dehydrated for an IV,
I
which is
know.
like crazy. It's like he was eating, maybe not just a ton.
Yeah.
I guess he was under
Yeah.
the lights at that point for a while too. So,
Yes. So all of that contributed. But um that must have been hard. Were you guys in the room when they were putting the IV in?
oh yeah, I told Ashley not to watch. And then I covered
I think
baby
we
Zen's
both
eyes
walked
too.
away. We both walked out, I think, halfway through because
I
they
think
were,
too, we didn't want to like put pressure on the nurses who were amazing, and they were like working so hard to try to get it in. And then the attending doc came around and he was like, dude, we'll just put you could talk about what this is, but an NG line in him and just get milk directly into his gut. And I didn't know what that was at the moment, but within seconds they had that in, and he was eating.
Yeah, an NG tube is a nasogastric tube. So naso nose, gastric stomach, and it's just a tube that goes up your nose and down into down your throat and esophagus into your belly. And then it's attached to a little
And,
pump
and,
where
and
and
they explained the plan. The attending was like, hey, we're gonna feed him. You're gonna keep feeding him, whether it's your breast milk or the banked milk, whatever milk it is. And whatever he doesn't get, they wanted him to have at least like 60, 70 mLs per 3 hours. We'll just set it to the line. And the plan worked to a T, which was he's gonna get full. He's gonna have lights on him, so he's gonna be clearing out the bilirubin, and then he will start eating a ton on his own. And it kind of played out that way.
yeah, and once he got enough energy in his system, he got rehydrated, got a little more energy, then he was able to figure out how to eat from the bottle and relied less and less on the tube feedings. And simultaneously,
He pulled out his own NG line.
oh
he
yeah,
did.
right. So he told you he didn't want that anymore. Just feed me with a bottle. And simultaneously, you ended up having a consult with the occupational therapist, Robin, who was great and helped figure out that maybe he would do better with a different kind of nipple based on his jaw and tongue being a little bit recessed at the moment. And you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, we had so many doctors, so many lactation consultants that came in just to give their input about why he wouldn't take the bottle that the NICU had. They tried different nipples, and he was agitated on the breast, agitated on the nipples. And the irony is he came out those first few days, the lactation consultant said, if every baby was like this, we wouldn't have a job because he was latching perfectly on everything we gave him. So he just took 10 steps backwards. And that was just so heartbreaking. There was nights, because I did spend the night there the first 2 nights, where I would be up with him for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and two nurses, it would take them an hour and a half to get him to take a bottle. But yeah, once the NG tube was out, we had no choice. Robin came in and just looked at one look, and she was like, what nipples are you using? Give me your phone. She put the nipples, the bottles that we should use in my Amazon account. I rushed delivery. It was on my doorstep in 3 hours. Like, I just can't believe we live in a world that happens. My dad brought the new bottles to the hospital, and the next feed, he was eating like a champ. So I think it's a combination of him getting stronger and the correct nipple. But ever since then, he's been on the up and up. But we were there for 4 nights. And it wasn't until like the third night where he was really, really starting to turn a corner.
Yeah, I want to just take a minute to talk about what you were saying, that it was sometimes taking an hour and a half or 2 hours to feed him. And the problem with that is that takes a lot of energy for a little baby to cry and fuss and eat a little bit and then cry and fuss a little more and work on trying to suck the milk out of a bottle or out of a breast. So then the baby ends up expending more energy than he ended up getting. And so then you're just contributing further to dehydration or weight loss. And so that's why the NG tube was also really helpful. Like he had to exert no effort and he was getting hydrated and getting the nutrients that he needed.
I think he would have figured it all. He would have figured it all out on his own. I there's a part of me that thinks if me and Ashley were super granola hippies, he would just be rolling around on a rug in the sunshine, eating some fibers off the ground, and eventually would have just pulled through and been fine. But thank God for abundance of caution and medical intervention, that there's no point to even play around with that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to talk about this in the medical breakdown, but around the world, there are hundreds of thousands of babies who are unable to get phototherapy, and over 100,000 of them end up dying because of high bilirubin, and then another approximately 60,000 end up surviving, but with pretty severe neurologic disability, because when the bilirubin is too high, it can end up causing brain damage, neurologic problems. So yes, I would like to think that probably the number would have gone down on its own, and it might have had he been a better feeder. And I think that combination of the feeding problems plus the bilirubin, that's what really made being in that NICU the right place for you guys. So I'm really glad that you weren't hippies hanging out in a place where you didn't have medical access. I'm really glad that you did have an amazing NICU right nearby and that you were able to get the treatment that you needed in a place that made you also feel like comfortable. And it sound like I said, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys probably want to come home, and you guys are like, actually, we're really comfortable here. It's fine. It's nice.
They gave us the option on day 3 to go home, and they were like, but look, why not just spend another night? And it's like, yeah, why not? The restaurant was downstairs. It's nice and open till 1 a.m. There's big windows. It doesn't feel like you're in a hospital. It just feels like a nice, comfortable place. And I was getting sleep. So
Yeah. All right. Is there anything that you guys wish that you had known beforehand, or any any advice for medical staff? Ashley, you said that the hospital staff was great, but pediatrician or OB-GYN, like anything you wish you had known, or any advice you'd give to parents that are, that have a baby and are being told that they have jaundice or need Billy lights, which is phototherapy?
I think it's just going in when you're in the hospitals, it's taking in all the wealth of knowledge from the doctors and nurses. We learned so much from every single nurse, every single shift. I think even just holding the baby, swallowing the baby, burping the baby, where I'm sure we would have figured out on our own.
The right angle to feed him. And
yeah. And again, there's all this different information out there, but I think just taking advantage of the extra sets of knowledge that was brought upon us every single shift. We really took that advantage to the max.
And, every nurse that came in was so different and had such a different background, and, kind of had their own style and vibe, but they all kind of had like a same quality of just being so caring and knowing what the child's needs are and knowing what our needs are, and how to make us feel okay and feel better. And, at one point she was like, you should be changing the diaper. You need the training. Like, she's like, I'm not going to always be here. And I'm like, you're right. I just figured you're standing up. And she's like, well, you should do it. She's like, I can do it.
Stand up too. What was the most interesting or surprised look or statement you guys got when people found out about your platonic co-parenting situation?
I don't think in the NICU that didn't come up at all. It was more in the labor and delivery. But yeah,
Did
that
come
didn't
up Someone did mention it. But it was like nothing that big. Like I don't think anyone made like a big deal out of it either way. But one thing that was funny was there was another dad in the room next door, and I think the nurse had asked him to change the diaper, and he was like straight up like, what did he say, Ashley? He was like,
oh, he was like, I think the mom was like, hey, come on, Dad, are you gonna help change the diaper? And he just gave her this look like, I'll do it at home. And she's like, oh, you'll do it at home, huh? And it was a little interaction that I overheard that made me appreciate Raman that much more, because he was just all excited to change the diaper whenever he could. But those families exist, and so yeah, we're lucky to have this dynamic.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I think you've got to start that diaper changing right at the very beginning. I was very clear when I would see babies in the nursery and I saw a poopy diaper. I made it very clear this is a dad's job to change it, because I would see these moms get up out of bed after having just delivered or a C-section while the dad is sitting over there, because and I don't think, some of it might be that I'm sure there are some dads out there who just feel like that's a woman's job, but I also think there's some dads out there who just feel a little crippled and feel like they don't know how to do it. So let's learn, and let's do it, because just because you don't know how to load the dishes doesn't mean you shouldn't load a dishwasher. Like, it's just, so we're gonna get you figure out how to change that diaper. So I love it. And Raman also had some practice with my kids. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had forgotten like what it was like. I mean, I forgot that you're supposed to like cover up the penis with something, because he's gonna just pee all over you otherwise. And I mean, at one point, I checked his diaper and I was like, oh, it's clean, it's just like barely any pee. So I didn't put a new diaper under the diaper. I just usually put a diaper under the diaper so it just collects any extra residual, right? So I was like, oh, it's clean, I'm just gonna take the diaper off. And then as I take it off and I'm like walking to the trash can, I look at my hand and it's covered in poop, and I'm like, where did this come from? I was like, and then I look back at him and like there's like poop flowing out of him. And I'm like, oh no, I screwed. This was in the NICU. Then I'm like, excuse, I need help. I was like, I need assistance. And like I have poop all over me and on like this little bed. And I'm like, oh my God, I totally screwed up. And the nurse comes in. She's like, yeah, you should usually put a diaper underneath the diaper. And I'm like, yes. yes.
Rookie mistake. Yeah. Actually, I would say you never walk away unless you, like, the baby should always have a diaper on him. So like, don't walk away to throw one diaper away until the baby's
yeah, and you shouldn't walk away either, especially if he's like on a changing station or something like that. I don't know if I like actually walked away. I was just like, oh my God, what is happening? Is someone out there? Like, where's the red button?
The help button. Okay.
I think we should get into the medical breakdown.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about what jaundice is. We mentioned it briefly earlier. So jaundice is the yellowing of a baby's skin and eyes. Anybody can get jaundiced. It happens commonly in babies. In older people, it happens if you have, mostly it happens in people with liver disease and the accumulation of bilirubin, the chemical that makes your pee yellow or your poop colored. The accumulation of that in your skin and eyes makes your eyes and skin yellow. There are many reasons why babies are jaundiced, mostly because of destruction of their red blood cells. And there are many reasons why babies' red blood cells are being destroyed at birth. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, bilirubin, that chemical, probably has some really powerful antioxidant properties. It's just that too much of it can be bad, because it can then cross into the baby's brain, where it can cause damage and it can even be fatal. Thankfully, in the US, we have treatment for it. We have phototherapy, which is light therapy that helps convert the bilirubin and make it not dangerous and for the baby anymore. And it can bring the bilirubin number down pretty fast. Also, the more you get the baby to pee and poop, the more you are clearing out the bilirubin. But it is fascinating to me, and I always tell parents, like, bilirubin on its own is like, it's not horrible in small amounts. I mean, and that's why there are so many reasons that babies are jaundiced. And there are so many factors that make a baby hold on to their bilirubin. Breast milk has an enzyme, beta glucuronidase, that that prevents babies from making bilirubin easier to clear. That same enzyme is also in the baby's gut at higher levels. So there's all these reasons why a baby's body is trying to hold on to bilirubin. But then you throw on top of that some ABO incompatibility, which we touched on, meaning the blood, there's the mom's blood type is different than the baby's blood type. This usually happens when the mom is an O blood type. And in Ashley's case, Ashley was O and the baby was A. And so the mom, because she has an O blood type, she has created what we call antibodies against A or B blood types. So that means if Ashley was to get a blood transfusion, she has to get only O blood type O blood transfused into her. If she got A or B, her body would attack that. But so now what happens when she has a baby that has an A type blood? So her body has these antibodies against A blood, but when the baby's in her body, you have the placenta that helps clear everything. So, but now on his own, he wasn't able to clear all that bilirubin, and those antibodies are going to persist in his blood for a couple of months. But the worst part is those first few days, usually the first 3 to 5 days. And so all that extra destruction of blood because of the blood type mismatch, plus all those other reasons why babies just have higher bilirubin. I didn't even touch on some of them, but there's just so many factors. And then you throw in that ABO incompatibility, and poor baby Zen ended up under phototherapy, not once, but twice. But he's fine now, and we shouldn't be needing to go back. Now, there's also just in the early newborn period, a common reason why babies are more jaundiced is because they're not feeding well. So that's called breastfeeding jaundice. And later on, once the baby's closer to like 3 weeks, there's another type of jaundice when the baby's closer to like 3 weeks called breast milk jaundice. And that's because of that beta glucuronidase that I mentioned earlier, that compound in breast milk that can make babies jaundice. Now, that's not a dangerous kind of jaundice. You don't need to do anything about it, except probably your pediatrician wants to just do a blood test to make sure that it's the right kind of jaundice and it's consistent with breast milk jaundice. And if that's the case, then you can keep feeding if you are nursing. This typically doesn't happen in non-breastfeeding babies. So those are just some of the reasons why we get jaundice. There's a lot. But in the newborn period, something like 60% of babies are jaundiced. So it's a common thing. And preemie babies, even more. So that's my short spiel on jaundice.
Yeah, that's a really good short spiel. I did a little bit of reading, and I found it really interesting that bilirubin helps against oxygen toxicity, which you mentioned, like the antioxidant properties of bilirubin. But yeah, I guess you don't really think about that when a baby is born and goes into the world. He's all of a sudden exposed to a ton of oxygen, and that was not what his life was like in the womb. And so all that bilirubin comes into action, I guess, and kind of detoxifies that oxygen essentially for the baby. It's also interesting how it was discovered that lights kind of get rid of the bilirubin, and what, like the chemical process of what is actually happening. I mean, the bilirubin just it changes forms, right, on your skin, and when light hits it, and then all of a sudden it's like easier for your body to clear out, which is totally random and crazy, and probably something to do with evolution and sunlight and who knows. But it was a bunch of nurses in Europe who realized that all the babies who would be at the windows in the 50s did not get jaundice. And so they were like, what is going on here? And then, it just went from there.
Yeah, I think that's all totally very interesting, very fascinating. And so much of medicine comes from observations and then figuring out, well, what exactly is happening here, and then turning into a treatment. So those nurses are, saving lives now because of their observation, and then someone listened to them and did this research. So it's really, really fascinating. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Angel, that medical breakdown was amazing, and as usual. And let's move on to, is this normal?
Yeah, is this normal that my baby is yellow? So like I mentioned earlier, it's totally normal. More babies experience jaundice than do not experience jaundice. So I think while it is normal, you need to let your doctor know if you think your baby's jaundiced. Most pediatrician offices now they have a screening test where they can look and do a skin test to tell you whether the baby has a high bilirubin level, and your baby should have a jaundice check before leaving the hospital. And we are really on top of jaundice and the problems associated with a high bilirubin in this country. In fact, I think we were overzealous a little bit. So if you're a doctor or just a nerd, you may want to know that a few years ago in 2022, the guidelines for phototherapy were actually revised, and so that the thresholds were all lowered a little bit because we were putting too many babies under phototherapy, it turned out, and we didn't have to put so many babies under phototherapy. So now, instead of about 4% of babies getting phototherapy a year, about 2% of babies are getting phototherapy. So that's nice. That's like helping a lot of babies not get unnecessary phototherapy and have to be away from their parents and maybe forget how to latch properly like Baby Zen did. So I think, but just knowing that it is normal, it's okay if your baby's jaundiced, but talk to your doctor, make sure your baby doesn't have a lot of risk factors, because babies that are at higher risk for the complications of a high bilirubin are babies that have blood type mismatches, what we call ABO incompatibility, babies who are premature. They're babies that are sick for some other reason, or so there are various reasons why some babies are more at risk for bilirubin toxicity than other babies, and your pediatrician and your healthcare team will know about that and take that into consideration when deciding whether or not your baby needs to have their bilirubin more closely monitored or get treated.
And if one parent is brown like myself and one parent is white like Ashley, maybe the baby it just comes out yellow.
That doesn't work.
It's not the in-between color.
I don't think so, but you do bring up like East Asians are at higher risk for jaundice, and African Americans in the U.S. often get underdiagnosed for high bilirubin. So I think if you are in a high risk category, or in that, if you want to make sure that you're just mentioning to your doctor, make sure your baby's getting adequately screened for bilirubin.
All right, let's move on to stuff you didn't know. Tell us something interesting, Angel.
I thought it was very interesting because, like you were mentioning, that these babies that are out in the sun they were having less jaundice, less yellowing of the skin and eyes than the babies that were further away from the windows. Why don't we just tell all babies to go be in the sun? I mean, it will help a little bit, but also the light therapy of phototherapy is a very specific wavelengths of light that are used. So we're not exposing the baby to all the other lights like UV light that can be damaging. And what can also happen is, sadly, sometimes people leave their babies outside and they overheat, and that is not safe for babies. Babies overheating is very, very dangerous. So it's hard for a doctor to kind of give like this unmeasurable advice of, just put your baby out in the sun, because we don't know exactly how much of the wavelength that is working to working to convert the bilirubin and help the baby remove it. We can't measure that when you just go put your baby in the sun or just go put them next to a window. But in some countries where they don't have the phototherapy units, what they've done is created this like a tint, essentially. And so you put the tint up on your window, and you can put the babies in the areas near the tint, and they can use this. They've studied this in clinical settings where that actually works. It filters out the rays that can cause damage. Like, you don't want UV rays. You don't want to increase, your risk of baby getting sunburned, but you get the rays that you do need, and you can measure it. And it's like equally effective as phototherapy. So that's really fascinating for areas with less resources, and really important for, as we mentioned earlier, I mean, around the world, there are still hundreds of thousands of babies who are dealing with potentially with some of these potential consequences of bilirubin toxicity. And one other thing that I thought was really interesting, why do O moms like Ashley, she's never been exposed, Ashley's never had a blood transfusion. She's never been exposed to A type blood or B type blood. So why is her body creating antibodies to A type blood, or B type blood for that matter? And it turns out that people with O blood types develop A and B antibodies over the course of their lives from exposure to different foods and bacteria. And those, so there's certain antigens on food and bacteria. So that means there's certain parts of food and bacteria that mimic the A and B components on red blood cells. And so then Ashley's body decides, like, oh, we don't like that. And so let's create some antibodies against that if we ever get exposed to that. And then, of course, she created those antibodies and then passed them on to her baby.
Thanks,
and
Ashley.
Here we are today.
Yeah, I found it pretty interesting too, because I was wondering, like, from an evolutionary perspective, why would a mother ever have a different blood type, or why wouldn't the child just have the same blood type as the mother? And it turns out that different pathogens are more susceptible to different blood types, so it's better for the species for us to keep having different blood types. And I guess evolution cares more about the greater picture than maybe the singular individual.
Totally right. So what you're saying is that certain diseases, certain bacteria, parasites, viruses are more likely, they can infect someone with A blood type maybe more than B blood type or O blood type. So so evolution wants to protect the human race from, or I don't even want to say, wants to protect humans. Yeah. Homo sapiens evolution wants to protect Homo sapiens from various pathogens. So we create different types of blood types so that if all the A's, if more A's are getting taken out, then that's okay because the B's and the O's are okay. So.
It's basically, it's almost like just having like it's almost like genetic diversity, but it's not genetic diversity, but it's similar to that.
Well, yeah, it is. And so I think the idea is there's a lot of variation in our genes because there is some susceptibility. Some people have more susceptibility than others. So having a variety then makes it, you have fail-safe groups.
And Angel, you might not know this. I might know something that you don't.
Oh, I'm excited.
Apparently, the first Coombs positive baby a mother has a way higher likelihood of survival. Let's say if we don't have medical technology and all that, than a second Coombs baby, because of the way the placenta is disrupted after the first baby, and there's like more interaction between the two bloods, I guess. But almost invariably, when a mom or when a baby is Coombs positive and it's in a place without medicine, the first child will be just fine. And if a child were to have a bad outcome, it would be like the second or third, which is totally weird.
We didn't talk that much about Coombs positive, but that basically means that it's a test that they do to see, is the baby's blood being attacked by the mom's antibodies? Are the antibodies from mom's blood attacking the baby and destroying the baby's red blood cells? And so that test is often referred to as a Coombs test or a DAT.
It had something to do with the placenta and how the placenta changes from like the first baby to the second, or how it's just not the same. Anyways, we could touch up on that on the next episode, maybe.
Yeah, we can like put it on the list of things to look into a little bit more.
What better hook for the next episode than find out about Coombs babies?
Yeah, well, my thought is that now Ashley's just being more like, her body is now being exposed to all these A blood that it has never been exposed to before. So this happens. So now her body's more sensitized. So she's going to create more of the antibodies against A.
Oh,
type.
right. That makes sense.
So then the next baby that comes along is going to be like super attacked because now the mom is like ready to fight because she's been really hyper exposed to A blood type versus before she had this little bits of A and here and there from food and bacteria exposure.
Yeah. So for all you nerds out there, stay tuned.
Ashley, thank you for being here again and sharing the story. And we're so glad that the phototherapy and feeding problems have resolved for the most part. I know you're still working on feeding and pumping and supplementing and all that. And many parents have gone through that, including me. So try to get some sleep. So glad you and Roman are basically like 24/7 around the clock work, taking care of this baby. And it's lovely. And I can't wait to see him again.
Can't wait to see you. Thank you, Dr. Angel.
Yeah.
Jaundice is one of those things that can turn what should be the happiest week of your life into one of the most stressful. Look, it happened to me and Ashley. It could happen to anyone. If today made it feel a little less scary, or gave you something useful to share with a new parent who's staring at a yellow or orangish baby, wondering what to do, please pass this episode along. Rate and review us wherever you listen to us, and if you didn't like us, send us to all the people that you don't like, and we'll see you next time.